Hi, I'm Becca and I'm addicted to media. If you read the description of my last video, which was my August wrap-up and my September TBR, you might have seen that I said that I was probably not going to participate in the DiverseAthon or the Slowathon, but I have changed my mind because I think that these two readathons are really important, especially DiverseAthon, and I'm just gonna probably read less, but I want to participate really badly, so I'm going to. So if you have no idea what I'm talking about, the DiverseAthon is about reading diverse books, and it takes place from the 12th to the 19th. And the Slowathon is about reading more slowly so that you can enjoy the actual reading experience. Both of the announcement videos for these readathons will be linked down below. So for this video, I'm mostly going to focus on why I'm reading these books for DiverseAthon, because I'm just planning on really taking in and taking enough time to really enjoy these books, and that's how I will be participating in Slowathon. Christina Marie from the channel Christina Marie, I will link her info down below as well. I was really struck by how well she talked about the topic of reading diversely and why it's really important, and I highly encourage you to go and check that video out if you haven't already. And I was thinking about what I would read for DiverseAthon and what I think it means to read diversely for me for this readathon. So I will be doing this in two ways. The first way is I will be supporting a diverse author of my choice by reading one of her books or more if I get to them. And the second way is I will be exploring some diverse reads that I have a personal connection with. So as far as that first way is concerned, I have chosen Octavia E. Butler as the author I would like to support. She is also the first African-American woman to gain popularity and critical acclaim through writing science fiction. Even more importantly, she writes about the importance of diversity in her own books. Diversity plays a huge role in her Lilith Broods series through genetics, so it's pretty cool. She writes about slavery and oppression in some of her books as well, including her Kindred series. I'm actually not planning on reading either of these books because I already had the first part of one of her series in my Kindle from a really long time ago, and I just never got around to reading it, so this is a perfect opportunity. And that series is the Earthseed series, and the first book is called Parable of the Sower. I encourage you to go and research her. She is a really interesting author. For the second part of me reading diversely and how that's going to work, I decided to split that again into two parts and talk about two things that are pretty important in my life. And the first one of those is mental illness. I am a sufferer of anxiety and depression, and so for this I will be reading Furiously Happy by Jenny Lawson. I actually got this idea from Jean from Such a Bookaholic, because in her DiverseAthon TBR, she mentioned that she would be reading this book, and I thought that that was such a good idea, and that's what really pushed me into actually participating in DiverseAthon, because I didn't even consider that I could be reading about mental illness as a part of DiverseAthon. That just never crossed my mind. I would like to mention though that it is much more common to find representation of mental illness in books, and especially in YA. And while that is true, it is still really important because there are so many ways that mental illness affects people and so many different stories to tell about that. For the second half of the personal journey I am trying to go through with DiverseAthon, I actually ran into several issues with this, and that is because for my second topic that I wanted to read about for DiverseAthon, I chose endometriosis and or chronic illness. I have endometriosis and it sucks, and that's pretty much all I'm going to say about it for me personally. I figured that there wouldn't be a lot of books on endometriosis, but I was shocked and pretty upset to find out that there aren't really any fiction books that have characters with endometriosis that I could find. So of the two books that I found, the first one wasn't translated into English, and unfortunately I do not speak the language or any other language besides English. I should probably work on that. The second book ended up being a romance, and if you've been watching me for a while, you know that I cannot stand romance. I did try the sample chapter on this woman's website, and I couldn't do it. It was too much. The most frustrating part about it is that the character was mostly dealing with her endometriosis, which is a valid perspective to present, but the fact that the character didn't just have endometriosis and then there were like other things going on was really frustrating to me. From what I could tell, the first chapter seemed to be gearing up into the perspective of her trying to figure out her newfound inability to have children because she found out she had endometriosis. Those aren't the kinds of things that affect me on a day-to-day basis. I was kind of disappointed because most of the time that is the only dialogue you hear as someone with endometriosis, that you can only get treatment or people are more likely to give you treatment because you are trying to get pregnant, and so that's your only valid choice, is to try and get pregnant, and that's just not what I want in life. So I was a little frustrated with that. And like I said before, neither of these books were in the young adult category. And I thought that this was really crazy because it's really important to feature endometriosis or other menstrual illnesses in YA, because most women start experiencing those symptoms in their late teens, which is when most women start reading YA. If we had more dialogue about this disease in our literature, then more women would be aware of it, and this could possibly lead to an earlier diagnosis and a breakdown of the social stigma about talking about periods and women's health. It was also shocking to me that I couldn't find any YA with characters with endometriosis because this disease affects 1 in 10 women, meaning chances are you know someone with endometriosis, even if they have not been diagnosed or are unaware of the disease. And then I was even more disappointed to realize, after a little bit more research, that even pelvic pain and anything to do with menstrual cycles was extremely rare in YA or fiction. One example of period pain being mentioned in a YA novel is Sarah J. Maas's Throne of Glass. Selena is in bed, she's experiencing terrible cramps, and Dorian comes in and is a complete jerk to her. I was so shocked to see period pain or menstrual cycles being mentioned in YA at all, although it was very glossed over. But I get it. I was less upset about the way she described periods and more about the way that she handled Selena and Dorian's actions after the fact. And that was because he comes in and he's baiting her. He diminishes her pain and casts it aside like it's not that big of a deal. He actually says, oh, it really can't be that bad. And I was just like, oh. Selena just sits there and is like, oh, Dorian, you're such a tease. And then they like continue to have a conversation. And I'm like, you're an assassin. You should be murdering him right now. I got a little bit more desperate after I realized that I would not be able to find a book that I could read where a character has endometriosis and does other stuff not about endometriosis. So I moved into the umbrella term that encompasses endometriosis, and that is chronic illness. And I discovered that the way that chronic illness is portrayed in YA is extremely damaging. Most stories that feature characters with chronic illness do it in one of two ways. One, the story is inspirational and therefore worth telling because the character dies, but teaches others around them what it is to live, truly live, in the process. Or 2, the story is inspirational and therefore we're telling because the character gets the miracle cure and lives and is better because of their brief time of suffering. What this teaches kids and teens and really anyone else is that your life isn't worth living unless you can be cured, which is just disgusting. I have linked down below an article about chronic illness in YA, and another problem that article mentions is how few novels there are of chronic illness where a character doesn't die. And the author of this article went about compiling a list of all these different novels where characters are not terminally ill, but they have a chronic illness. I didn't even bother looking at them because the conclusion that they came to was that they didn't even know if the character dies or not. The big shocker here is that there were only 14 books that qualified as far as not having terminal illnesses as a chronic illness representation. I don't want to read those books because I don't want to get halfway through a book and realize the character is going to die and that is all they are there for the story. And so, sadly, for DiverseAthon, I did not find a chronic illness or endometriosis book to read. If you have any suggestions of what I could read about these things, I'd be really interested to know in the comments down below. I'm really excited to read the 2 books that I did pick out, and explore more diverse reads in that way, and hopefully in the future there will be more books written about these other things as well. If you like this video and you want to see others like it, you can stick around to the end of the video and click on some of my links. Also, if you like this video, you can let me know by comment, subscribing, or giving me a thumbs up, and I hope you're having a really great day. Okay, bye! I realize now that I probably just been calling it Slowathon. It is called Slow Readathon, and the hashtag is Slowathon, so in case there is any confusion, I'm sorry. It doesn't make sense for her to talk about it and be like, I'm on my period, blood is everywhere. Dorian, just shut up. I would not be held back if I was an assassin. I would be like, you're dead now.